Welcome to YSM Conversations, a gathering place for women who sense something deeper is calling. Together, we believe that the most profound adventures begin within, and that when women gather in deep conversation, something ancient and necessary awakens.
Open the door to a new conversation through generative listening, weaving together generations of wisdom and listening beyond the ears to restore the intelligence your body has always carried and integrate soulfulness into the adventure of your life. This is restoring and connecting to the deeper current running beneath it all.
We are YSM Conversations. Welcome home. Welcome back into the conversation. Here's a little of where we left off.
My whole body is just in sheer happiness right now, just in the reflection of those experiences. I remember standing up in front and giving that request and knowing maybe it would be met and maybe it would not, and that's okay. I feel like that's part of the origin of how we've come together to invite people into our little cubby, as if we're having lunch and we're saying, one, we're having a conversation with each other here in whatever is drawing our attention. And we'd love for you to eavesdrop on us and maybe even say, I'd love to join you sometime.
And we continue.
We're open to that idea. I think that's something that's newly generating, as well as that we see the vision that somebody else might want to come in and chat. And while it's probably not great to eat while we're podcasting, we'll just pretend like we're having lunch together online. So I'm really appreciating the reflection of the feeling of those moments and how it drew us together. And I feel that as the self-revealing, the magic of how we can all be that with one another. And different people tend to be attracted to very certain kinds of energy, like the two magnets that come together, and then the magnets that are naturally designed to move away from each other. That not everybody is my cup of tea. And I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I was telling you that earlier. Not everybody's going to say, well, I want to hear what she's got to say. But somebody does. And I think that has been part of this ongoing origin story too, that it does take some courage and some fortitude to sit and listen to one another for about a year and be patient with self and one another and discover the nuances of what it is to sit in conversation, and that it always reflects and brings up the parts of ourselves that we struggle in, the parts that we, like you said, you appreciated my request. It drew something up in you to consider, oh, what is that for me? And in my past trainings in Gestalt body process work, that was like a fundamental ground that I operated in, is that when I am present to me and I'm with someone else and I'm present to them, then the magic of what happens in that presence between two generates what's new.
And I think what is revealing itself as we speak about generative listening and go deeper into what exactly is generative listening. I heard you say, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody is going to want to hear what I have to say. And I think that's an interesting piece, because in generative listening, it's not actually necessarily about what you say in terms of showing or telling or sharing. It is also about that presencing and asking to help that self-revelation process happen. And for anyone who's not watching the video, my hands are circling each other in this cycle of we pull something out of the person that we're in conversation with, and then that pulls something out from us. And it continues on in this beautiful cycle of revelation. And I don't even know what the next one would be. It's like, it's revelation. Oh, Duh. It's revelation and generation. Revelation and generation, revelation and generation. And I think that's what's so beautiful about being in conversation, air quotes around conversation, because it's different than what we traditionally think of as conversation, where it's back and forth, and not necessarily present and deeply going through that cycle of revelation and generation. But when we are in conversation that's super present with each other, and we have that listening to self, to the other person, to the field that is being created between the two of you, that's where that magic starts to occur and draws everybody in, I think. You're talking about the magnets. Sometimes they come together, sometimes they force each other apart. And as you were talking about that metaphor, it feels almost like a natural law that we are drawn towards self revelation. And that's something that we all have some deeper magnetism to, whether it's through a person that helps you to reveal more stuff from you because they're present and asking you questions, or an activity, a creative activity, or being out in nature, something like that, that is self revealing. It just feels like there's something very natural and very, I don't want to say designed, but very part of the process or part of what we're here to do.
I think you could say design,
Okay.
but I would add to it that it is the organic design,
Hmm.
the natural unfolding. And that's the thing that, like you were saying, that sense of there's conversation and then there's presencing what is revealing. And that's a depth that many of us don't spend much time there. And how I was referring to us in the beginning of this origin story is multi-generational and multi-dimensional. And this presencing way of being with one another for me is the multidimensional nature of who we are. And multidimensional is not only in human dimensional awareness, but it's our multidimensional awareness of how nature reflects to us in a sunset. And oftentimes I will be chatting and my husband will say, "What'd you say?" And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was not talking to you. I was talking to the trees." And people think, "Oh, that's kind of cute." No, there's a multidimensional aspect that I'm quite comfortable now at this point in my life of saying, I do have relationship with the multifaceted aspects of life, not just in the human spectrum, in relationship to our pup dogs. We have that same. Was it any different than an animal, the horses? When I lived on a ranch decades ago, yeah, I had a relationship with the cows, right? They have their own nature and their own personalities that come through. So I think what I love about this, the origin of this, is this notion that we start to discover as that multidimensionality reveals itself that we have more access to the greater spectrum of what life shows us when we're in the presence of it, like fully present is extraordinary, even moving towards having more presence in ourselves will show us. And I think that's what we did in those conversations week after week as we just kept listening. We were in the conversation. And I remember during that transition period of time, we very much did talk about, well, we could do a retreat or we could teach online yoga. We could create structured formats, if you will. And it just kept not happening. So I think that's important to bring that into the story of there was something else that wanted to be generated that we didn't know, that we sifted through so many different conversations until the revelation was so much clearer. And like we said in previous episodes, what is the work you can't not do? What is the being you can't not be? This was part of the process that we went through for this podcast to be revealed to us.
And I love that you're bringing in the, it just kept not happening for the things that we were bringing forth and saying, oh, we could do this, we could do this, we could create so many beautiful things. And that feels like we're teasing our way into the next conversation because there's something in me that really just wants to talk about the bumps in the road that we experienced as YSM came to be, because it wasn't all smooth.
Sit with what just moved through. We'll meet you in the next one. Thank you for diving deep with us into generative listening. If this episode stirred something in you, subscribe to keep restoring with us. And if someone came to mind while you were in your own generative listening, share this episode with them. Because when women gather, something ancient and necessary awakens.
We are YSM Conversations, connecting back to the deeper currents on behalf of seeding our next collective wholeness.